Well, Ken, last Saturday, the Reading Athletic Hall of Fame held the induction ceremonies, and 5 new inductees went into the Reading Athletic Hall of Fame. Just looking back on it now, how do you think things went?
John, they went real well. We had our second largest crowd of our 10-year endeavor. It was our 10th anniversary, and we had 2 teams that we invited back in, the 72-73 team, which were undefeated, and that helped our crowd a lot. But the inductees went in, and our MC helped a whole lot too.
That MC, of course, was former Xavier coach and coach of the Houston Oilers, Ed Biles.
That's right, and Eddie did a fantastic job. I mean, people around town know Eddie real well, and he did a lot of kidding with the politicians and so on and so forth, but the program moved real smooth, and there was no problems at all.
A little about the Reading Athletic Hall of Fame. Your 10th induction class just going in last Saturday. Were you pretty much on the ground floor when this thing got going 10 years ago?
Yes, John. What happened here is back in 1984, the assistant principal, Ron Cutter, called me and was talking about putting some pictures of some of the athletes, the best athletes that played at Reading in the gymnasium lobby. And we got to talking about it, and the more I got thinking about it, I told him, I said, well, why don't we just have a banquet and have a Hall of Fame and honor these guys with a crowd and have a dinner and everything else. And so we sat down, discussed it, talked to some other people that have had Hall of Fames, and this is the way we did it. Now, we have a little different criteria than a lot of them. Ours is based on not only what you did in high school, but your achievements in high school, post-high school, or professionally. And we feel that that was a good way of doing it. Now, a lot of the other ones just do what they did in high school. But to give you a perfect example, Darrell Pace went in the first year. Now, Darrell didn't really do any athletics at Reading, but he was the Olympic archery champion, I think, 2 years. And then he also had a lot of USA archery championships. So we felt, being it's a community, ours is basically a community and high school event, and people that have recognized through the community and the school. So that's the way we've done it.
Here in 1994, who were your 5 inductees, Ken?
We had Charlie Haverty from the class of 32, and Charlie was a 3-sport man. He earned about nine letters: football, baseball, and basketball. Was captain of the baseball team in both 31 and 32. We had a fellow named D. Willett, the class of 48, who excelled in 4 sports. He was a good track man. He was a shot put champion. Played tight end down at for UC for Ray Nolting till he blew his knee out. But he was outstanding also. And of course, Jerry Doherty, our coach, who has a record at the school for 25 consecutive wins in football. And then we had Randy Crucible, who quarterbacked those 2 undefeated teams, who played down at Austin Peay. He graduated in '74, and he was outstanding baseball player, played on the state championship baseball team, and took the team to 2 state semifinals. And then we had the fantastic and great Carol Mattson, and I'm sure everybody's heard of her. Played at Reading, broke all the records at Reading. 3-point shooting, she made 12 in one game, 12 3-point shots. Played at Xavier, broke the assist record at Xavier in 3 years, and was the second leading scorer of all time down at Xavier.
With the induction of Jerry Doherty, I know there had to be a few tears in the audience. Certainly, Jerry was taken very early in his career due to illness, and I know there are a lot of people there really want to honor his memory. Yes,
there was a lot of nostalgia. We put him in last for that reason, and his son, Rick, I remember Rick when he was just barely able to walk at that time, and Jerry, we asked him about Jerry, if he remembered Reading at the games. He said the only thing he remembered was going in the locker room with Jerry before the games and at halftime. But it was a very, very emotional thing, both from Randy's end of it and from Rick's end of it with Jerry, because they were very, very close.
Your hall, I guess, is it 5 each year, so you have approximately 50 in there now?
Yeah, we've got 50 in right now. I think another aspect of ours that I was really happy with is we tried to invite all of them back that's been put in. And, of course, there's some of them that have passed on. But we had 37 possible people come back. A lot of them are out of town. But of those 37 possibilities, we had 28 of them come back. And I think that's just great. I mean, to get them, we got a picture of them all together and everything, and it was fantastic to have all those guys together again.
Let me ask you about your selection process without going into individuals, but basically, I don't know, have you used the same format all the way through, and how do you do it now?
Yes, we're still using the same format. We try to get the guys to get either a scrapbook and a lot of times we go through the like the ballots that we have at our Hall of Fame night, and we go through them, and the first people in there, we've got a list that goes back. I mean, we usually start out with about 20 and knock it to 10, and then we pick 5 out of those 10 and go through that process every year. And a lot of the guys that have played 3 sports or that have played professionally in some professional level or college level usually get recognized first. Now we're getting down to the nitty-gritty as far as professional guys go, but it's basically now it looks like most of them are going to be high school guys, what they did in high school.
Now, so you have a committee of approximately how many people?
9 guys on the committee.
And do you try to get someone for, say, each era? I know Reading started back in the early 20s.
Yes, we do. We just had a guy that graduated in 1930 that was on our committee, but of course he's getting up in age and he doesn't like to get out at night and travel. But he did a lot of our research for us, which took us back into the from the beginning of Reading up until his era through the 30s. We got a lot of the 30 guys in, and we're doing research on some guys now back in the 20s. It's very difficult to go back that far when you don't have any newspapers. They never had any annuals at that time, and all we're going by is what these guys have come up with as far as clippings that they've kept through the years, or their fathers and mothers have kept, or they've had all down the road,
Here we are, of course, your 10th class going in, 50 members. You mentioned Darrell Pace. Of course, we have this year's class. Who are some of the other members that are in there that have been in there now?
Well, Claude Osteen, who pitched for the Dodgers, he pitched in a couple All-Star games and a lot of World Series games, and he's still pitching coach yet. He was with the Rangers, but I understand the Rangers have eliminated their whole staff. He was with the Dodgers up until he went with the Rangers 2 years ago. So I look for him to light back with the Dodgers. We had Jim Herbstreit, who captained Ohio State back in 1961, played an East-West All-Star game then, played both ways at Ohio State, both defensive back and offensive back. We had Don Murphy, graduated in 49, who was an NBA referee for about 18 years, 16 years, somewhere around in there. Dick Willett, who is in La Rosa's Hall of Fame, he earned 18 letters at Reading, the most anybody's ever earned. Let's see, who else? Bobby Willett went in. He played at Ohio University in baseball, was the NCAA batting championship, won that back in 1964. Jim Booth went in as a coach, and I think a lot of people remember Jim from down at Xavier University, was a little All-American. Tom Grippa, who's the elder high school football coach, and Tom graduated in 74, and he was outstanding athlete at Reading also. Steve Angle graduated in 1980, pitched Reading in the state championship. I think he pitched something like 18 consecutive shutout innings or something in the state, and then played with the Cubs. We put him in 1991. Nelson Miller, who played at Ohio State along with Jerry Lucas in that bunch, he graduated in 58. He's in there. So it's quite an array of guys that's went in.
Really, Reading is not this giant school like some of the both public and private schools in the area. I know goes back quite a way, as we said, into the 20s, but I think it's very interesting. You have some players, I know at least, one pro there with Claude Osteen, and really kind of a small community there.
Yes, that's very true. We're down at about Division 4, I believe, right now. And, of course, back in the 70s, Reading was kind of big. They were Double-A then, but since then the population has dwindled. So it's made it kind of tough for them out here. They don't have enough. You're playing soccer and football and all that, and it's hard to get enough kids to come out for football and soccer both. It's very difficult.
Who would be your youngest member of the Hall of Fame? I assume somebody out of school not that long.
Let's see. I would have to say that. Carol Matson graduated. Well, let's see. Carol, when did she graduate? Let's see. look at the list here.
Probably sometime, I would guess, in the
Carol
80s.
graduated in '89, so she is the youngest one.
Do you have any kind of criteria that you have to be out of school 4 or 5 years, or is that play a part at all?
We don't really have anything etched in stone, John, but usually we wait and give them a chance to go through college if that's what they're going to pursue. Like Carol, there was a lot of them hankering for her to go in as soon as she graduated from the high school, but we wanted to wait till her career was over. It makes it much more impressive when you give her award and you got on there all the things that she's accomplished. One other aspect of our Hall of Fame is people ask about what we do with the monies, and it's very interesting. A lot of people just hang pictures up in their hall or their lobby or whatever, but we had a showcase made, and we are really proud of our showcase. We've had a lot of people comment on, a lot of ADs that's come around to the wrestling and basketball games, and it's a very impressive thing. We've got them all the pictures of the guys, and they're laminated onto a plaque with their accomplishments in the year they went in. It's pretty neat.
I was going to ask you, is that located like in the lobby of the gym there?
Yeah, it's right in the lobby of the gym. In fact, we put that showcase picture, we had a picture taken of it, and we put it on the cover of our program this year.
I'm wondering here, looking back over the many years and whatever, have you ever come across, maybe a possible candidate, but you kind of had to hunt around to find out if that person is still living, and if so, where?
No, we haven't. Not yet. We most of the people, what we do, John, on our criteria is we locate them. Sometimes we work 2 years ahead of ourselves and try to get info on guys. It makes it a lot easier when you want to put them in. And we've got a couple of guys that we've got information on that we got 2 years ago that we're planning on putting in. And we try to make it a fact that we want them to be there when we do this. We've got one fellow that we want to put in, and he's coaching in college right now, and he never has been able to get here because ours is always in October when they're playing, and it makes it tough for us.
Let me ask you about your format. I found it very good that you have this 10 years now, and you've had the same format, because I know some schools have started it off, and they start off with a real big bang, a big meal and a dinner and a guest speaker, and after a couple of years it's dwindling down, and there's not many people there, and they're going to probably have it at a football game because there'll be obviously a crowd there for that. But it looks like your format is continuing in popularity.
Yes, and we figure that we probably have 100 to 125 steady people that come every year. And then we pick up another 150, to 175 just with the people we put in. And the other thing that we do, John, is our TV station, which I think is real unique, is they video it for us. We give each person that's inducted, including the MC and the guy that gets the Blue Devil Award, gets a copy of that video that they can show their grandchildren or, whatever they want to do. If they ever want to get it out themselves and look at it, they got a copy of that.
That video runs on the cable, I know at least on Warner Amex cable in Hamilton County, and is seen on that, several times here up through the fall and into the winter?
Yes, and they're going to be running this one, if you're interested. They're going to start it on November the 5th on Channel 15. And then they're going to run it the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, 10th, and the 12th. And those dates will probably be in the paper. You'll be seeing them somewhere. If you'd ever want to watch it, it'll be on there.
Also, I believe, too, if you put on, Channel 15 during an off period, they're running a slide. They do show, there's previews listed of what's coming up later on, actually, that whole week.
Yeah, that's right. They do. The first one is at 6 o'clock on Saturday the 5th. That'll be the first one.
Are these like highlights? I know obviously you don't have the whole hour, or do you?
I believe they do. I believe they show the whole thing. And another unique thing that we did this year that the guy that did the video was really impressed with is we made a banner up of each year that people went in, and we hang them over the podium. And it was really impressive to see those banners hanging up, or something like the Boston Celtics at the Gardens, at their place. But that's another thing that we did this year to jazz it up a little bit.
Well, it sounds like it's really great. I'm wondering here, like last Saturday, and as you indicated, Do you have like a presenter, or does this the MC say, and now the next inductee is such and such? How do you do that?
Eddie Biles was a master of ceremonies, and well, in the past, I'll tell you how we did it, John, and we got away from it because it just run the program too long. We had each guy, we had an MC, but we had the guy select someone that he wanted to induct them, because we've seen other guys do it that way. But it got to drag the program out so long because the MC would introduce the guy that's going to be the inductor, and then he would talk about the guy that's being inducted, and it just dragged the program out too long. But Eddie did the whole thing. He did all the inductions, and he also did all the people that had to be recognized that were there in the audience, which we do too.
I'm wondering here now, like for example, Jerry Doherty, did his son speak and accept on his behalf?
Yes, he did. In fact, Jerry's wife was there. She has since remarried, but she was there, and she had her other two children with her. And like I say, it was pretty emotional. They had a picture of Jerry that hung down at the football stadium in the concession area for something like almost 20 years. And they took that down, I guess it was about 2 years ago. And they brought it, and somebody had it and brought it down there Saturday night. And boy, Rick, he was so impressed with it, and they give it to him. He said he's going to hang that in his room.
And at the same time, you mentioned the other another one of the inductees, Randy Criswell, who played for Jerry. I'm sure that was somewhat emotional too when he accepted.
Yes, it really was. Of course, Jerry, when they went to state, Jerry was in the hospital, and he wanted to be there. I mean, it was just awful emotional all the way down the line, and Randy did a real nice job. I mean, in fact, all the inductees, their speeches were very good and very impressive, thanking the coaches, and that's the important part, is getting the coach in there and the parents and things like that, and Randy did both of those real well.
You've had this for 10 years now, Ken. I'm wondering here, and of course we don't have to mention kind of names, I'm wondering, any unusual incidents that have taken place, either in the planning stages or on induction night, that you kind of look back upon now after 10 years?
Well, I'm trying to think. Not really. Not anything that's blowed the program for us.
Or became humorous or emotional or funny or, that type of thing. I find it interesting sometimes what can take place.
Yeah, I'm looking back here. Of course, with Nuxall being the MC the first year, you can imagine what that was. Mm-hmm. And him and Osteen being very close, playing on the same team together, probably was the most humorous one that we had, because it was like a roast on Osteen. I mean, and then Osteen come back on him pretty good with some stuff too. So I think probably that was one of the funnier ones. And I'll tell you, we had Tom Balaban one year did the emceeing, and he was great. I mean, he told a lot of stories about him and Faust when they coached against each other, and a lot of people want to see him come back, 'cause I think he was good. We've had John Popovich, and he was outstanding, and Denny Jansen, he was an excellent MC also. So we've had some good MCs.
And I think it also, as you mentioned, you have the current Hall of Famers come back, and you get an awfully good turnout, it sounds like, there.
Yeah, that's an important part of the program. I think the people want to see these guys. I mean, some of them, like Jimmy Herbstreit, this is the first time Jimmy has been back in about 4 or 5 years, because he was tied up with his son playing up at Ohio State. And he come down, and he was just happy as a lark to be there, and he's going to try to be, from now on in, he said he's going to try to be there every year, but he still follows the Buckeyes. In fact, he was at the game Saturday, and he came down right after the game. He got down to our place about 6 o'clock. So our program, what I found out, John, about this is you listen to the public, what the public tells you. And that's what we've done. They wanted to increase the social hour, so we went from an hour to an hour and a half, because it gives them time to talk, to the guys that are there, because they don't get much time in an hour. And then we have another social time after the affair is over, where they can get together with the guys.
It sounded like, it was quite an evening, and this must be right up there along with, your real good ones. Obviously, you remember your first year, but 10 years, and sound like things are really moving along well. This
is one of our best ones, crowd-wise, and just the participants that we had by bringing all those guys back. I just think that made the thing just more exciting, and I think the people were revved up. There was a lot of people just standing around before talking and going from one guy to the other. You know, it was just so much fun. I can't explain to you. You'll have to come to one. I'll have to invite you down to next year's. I think you would really enjoy it.
Well, I certainly think so, and I appreciate that, Ken. I'm wondering here now. You know, here you got like a, you know, this one's finished up, and you obviously things begin planning almost right away for the next one. And you, as you say, take comments from those on hand and trying to plan for the future then, huh?
That's right, yeah. The Hall of Fame ballots we give out, they can pick, you know, as many as they want. A lot of them, we got about 6 or 7 lines on there that they can put their favorite guy on there, or coach, or whoever they think for the Blue Devil Award. And any comments they want to make concerning the event, you know, whether they didn't like it. A couple times we had people complain about the sound system, which the city has taken care of. God bless them. They fixed our sound system for us. And like I say, the program being too long, we took care of that. And we did away with the guys doing the induction. I mean, and there were some complaints about that. So we look into everything that they, you know, that they tell us within reason.
You make your final selection. This is, you say, this takes place in October. When do you say these are going to be the 5 inductees for this year? I mean, you do that in the summer?
We usually, we'll have another meeting now. We'll take off, and we'll have another meeting sometime in January, and then we'll lay out the groundwork. We'll talk about an MC. We'll talk about our Blue Devil Award, and we'll go over the candidates and let everybody look at them, you know, take home some notes on the different guys and do some thinking on it. And we'll be meeting January, February, March, and then we usually make a decision somewhere around April.
Your Blue Devil Award, please mention who got that here in 1994.
Very interesting. Ken Rushi, who has worked with the Reds, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Oilers. He's also works for Wellington Sports Medicine right now, and Kenny has always helped the high school. He's been down there on the field, come rain or shine. He was down there, you know, all through this last, I'd say these last 15, 20 years up until this point. The last couple of years he hasn't been able to do it because he's been with the Olympic teams. He just come back from Rome with the Olympic swim team, the U.S. swim team, and they were over there. He's been all over the world, I mean, with training. He loves it. It's his life. I mean, when you talk about it, he gets excited when you talk to him about it. So he was real happy. I mean, it's something that we wanted to do a long time ago, but we've been kind of waiting to see where his career was going to go because we didn't know whether he was going to go with a pro team again or not. But he doesn't want to doesn't want to do that traveling.
Well, Ken, it sounds like another fine year for the Reading Athletic Hall of Fame, and we certainly enjoyed listening about it and finding more out about this activity. And we certainly appreciate you having you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you having me.